three kinds of game. It's got more than one function. It answers the spiritual urges, the emotional urges, the physical urges, the physical questions. It answers all of them. That's what it's got to offer.
Hello. Often when we discover something new or essential in our lives, we can pinpoint a person or an event that acted as a catalyst for this discovery. And when it comes to ye, that person for me is the psychotherapist Dan Lowe. I listened to Dan at the beginning of this year discussing his enduring relationship with the I Ching on Douglas Batchelor's What Magic Is This podcast. And it was this discussion, more than any other, that inspired me to pick up my copy of the Yi, which I hadn't opened for decades, and look at it again through somewhat fresh eyes. I suppose like a kind of a character in a Gabriel Garcia Marquez novel who returns to a lover he once had a brief relationship with in his youth, only to find that time has deepened her allure and mystery. It felt as if the text itself had been patiently waiting for this idiot speaking to you here to become the kind of person, which is to say, the kind of older idiot who might finally be in a position to appreciate its wisdom. I also greatly enjoyed Dan's discussion on another podcast episode about the Austrian psychoanalyst and all-round maverick Wilhelm Reich, so I'll stick a link to both of those in the show notes. Reich, as you may know, was a man who, in his time and afterwards, was justly celebrated for his groundbreaking contributions to psychoanalysis and what we might now call body-oriented psychotherapy, often employed for deep-seated trauma, chronic stress, and somatic disorders. Think Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps Score and other books of that ilk, which have all captured, we might say, our 21st century imagination and bestseller lists with their insights into trauma and the mind-body connection. Reich is often residing, I think, in these pages as an unacknowledged precursor. Indeed, the foundational concepts of body psychotherapy were largely developed by Reich, who was among the first to explore the deep connections between mind and body in a therapeutic context. Reich was undoubtedly one of the great, albeit somewhat tragic, idiots of the 20th century who, as Dan suggests, is probably long due for a revival. When I found out that Dan was a fellow London-based psychotherapist, I decided to get in touch to see if he might be willing to talk about some of these intersections between ancient wisdom and modern therapeutic practice. And Dan very kindly agreed to have that conversation with me. So this is our chat on Hampstead Heath amidst the joggers, the vloggers, and every dog walker within a 5-mile radius. After drinking some delicious gin junmei and an oolong from farmerleaf.com, we talked about some of the connections between the mind and body, the timeless wisdom of the I Ching, and also how much of this might continue to influence and resonate within us. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did. A huge thanks once again to Dan for agreeing to share some of his thoughts on these topics with me. It's a big question, which is why I'm holding the book. What does this book mean to you? Do you have the same copy as I do? One?
I've had that copy. I've got at the moment, that was my first copy was a paperback. I've now got a knackered old hardback, which is falling apart, and I've lost the dust jacket.
Is that the Princeton one? The grey cover and the...
It's that one, but it would have originally had a dust jacket. But it's completely knackered now. I've been meaning to buy a new one for years, and I just haven't got one. Well, I'm waiting until I find one in a charity shop, I think. But it's the same edition. It's Richard Wilhelm. With all the commentaries, So yeah, same edition as yours.
What does it mean to you when you sort of pick it up and and you look at it, or you see it on your shelf, what is it?
I would say it's lots of things. It's a practical tool for answering questions if I'm stuck on something, or if I need another perspective. It's a repository of wisdom. It seems to be full of useful advice on how to live, and it's a kind of philosophical repository, I guess, because through asking it questions and consulting it on how to live, you kind of end up imbibing the metaphysics, which is all about change, and how, as I think it says somewhere, I'm not going to remember the phrase exactly, if it's overcast it might not last all day, but things change. So in thinking about the I Ching or I Ching, you end up positioning yourself somewhere philosophically, really. So I think you start off asking questions, and it ends up permeating your life in a way, and you end up, and maybe if you stick with it, you might end up embodying some of that philosophy. Which is a lot of the time is like, stop trying so hard and leave things alone, and let things change of their own accord. At moments it's that, but other moments it's like, really go for it, really put your all into this. But at moments like that, it's like, at moments like that you really do have a wind to your back, I think, in terms of when it's really one of those moments. But a lot of the time we're so caught up in our desire to do something immediately and straight away, we don't realise it's not really the time. And I Ching is a device for sort of discerning the time, a lot of the time, working out when we should act, and when we should maybe not act, and stay quiet and silent.
Absolutely, and that is something, I don't know, I wonder if that's also something that certain personality styles need more than others. I mean, I know I do, I'm quite a sort of emotional, impulsive type, and so I need quite a bit of that, right? And that's why I guess for me it feels like quite a good fit in that sense. But you don't strike me as that sort. I mean, unless this has just permeated you over the years, right? Because I mean, you've been using this for what, decades?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you feel like there are? Do you feel like it's helped you to sort of curb your enthusiasm? I guess?
Yeah, completely. Completely.
When you would have maybe, made things more difficult for yourself by pushing through, or
absolutely, yeah. There's been a number of times I can think of when I've started to invest in a project, bought the stuff, started getting things ready, and then thought to do the I Ching, and it said actually that's not a good idea for you at the moment, and in the instances I'm thinking of, it's been right. It's like, that wasn't a great idea. I was caught up in a flash of enthusiasm, and it wasn't all that wonderful actually, after all. So that experience has happened a lot. It's particularly, one of the things I can relate that to with VE is romance, and being caught up with someone and thinking, wow, they're the best thing ever, let's get married and do all the stuff, and realising maybe that isn't something that's going to be enduring. It's something that's going to be much more of a brief flash in the pan. So yeah, I think that's, I mean, some of it's age, but some of it is definitely using the I Ching over a long period of time. It does kind of It makes you see your desires and impulses in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, often some of a number of the answers I get, but I guess again for my impulsive personality, or impulsive reactive personality, is, very often it breaks down to kind of like, be patient, which again it's interesting because sometimes there's plenty of people, wise people around who are happy to tell you that, but there's also something about when the yi tells you to be patient, that somehow, I don't know, it's less easy to just sort of brush it off, like, oh, okay, well, yeah, of course you're going to say that, right? What is that? What is it about it also that makes it feel, I don't know, other than maybe our trust or faith in it, what is it that makes it feel kind of like that is the definitive answer, almost?
I think, well, firstly, your question reminded me of something my mate Joel said, which was, he said the first 10 years he felt like it was just waiting all the time. I can't remember which hexagram number waiting is off the top of my head, but he said, for the first 10 years it just seemed like waiting all the time. I think it's the fact that in our culture anyway, the conventional explanation for this would be, it's just random chance and you're just projecting. If you use it, it certainly doesn't feel like that, and I don't think it is random chance. So you get a sense that something is speaking. What is speaking? I don't know. Let's say the book is speaking. And if something is speaking to you, something more than human or outside the human is speaking to you, then it carries, in a way, more authority than a human voice. Yeah, it's something a bit more than a friend telling you, or a productivity guru telling you, or this person or that person telling you. It's something.
Max. Calm down, Max. Calm down.
Yeah. It's something more than that, or at least it seems. Well, no, it is that. Well, it seems that way to me.
Yeah. It's a bit, it's sort of, when you were talking, I wonder if a useful analogy might be, it's a bit like having a dream. Sometimes you have a dream, right? I mean, again, it's almost sort of biblical. It's like Joseph. You have that dream and you're like, God, yeah, that dream has something to tell me. It's come from the depths of my subconscious. And quite often there's something about it that it feels like it's coming from that space.
Yeah. No, I'd agree completely. You can cultivate dreams with the eye as well. Write a hexagram out, put it under your pillow, see if you can.
That's a nice idea.
Yeah. See if But I think it's that sense of when you get a sense that it works. It's so easy to do. But there's something quite extraordinary about that, and that's in a sense, and I think this is maybe where you're at the moment, where like addiction to the I Ching is kind of inevitable. Once you realise that it works, it's a bit of like, really this works. So there's a temptation to do it over and over again. I'm not saying you're addicted to it at all, but there's there's absolutely that fascination. Yeah. The desire to, this does work. This is speaking to me. So you want to keep speaking.
Yeah.
And after a while, when you get used to it speaking, then you can tune in a lot more and see what it has to say. What's its imperative? What's it guiding you towards?
Yeah, because I think, I think one way where it still feels like such a useful tool or a useful way of engaging with the world is, it seems that, again, like dreams, that it really pulls you into depth, a certain form of depth, right? Because, thinking about the ancient oracle and the new oracle, I mean, we've got OpenAI, it's a kind of oracle in a way. You can ask it questions, it gives very interesting and intelligent answers, but there's something about GPT-4, I don't know how much you use GPT-4, right, that it still feels like it's just the whole of the internet smushed together, responding to you, and therefore it doesn't seem to have that depth, that authenticity, somehow, right? What is the difference, do you think? What is the difference between the ancient oracle and how that brings you into depth, and GPT-4's failure, at least in its current state, to actually do that, even though it says all the right things?
I'm much more kind of cynical about AI than you are, maybe, and maybe even I'm going to be proved wrong. But I think the thing to me about ChatGPT, it might be fascinating in a million ways, but it doesn't seem to me there's a genuine intelligence there. So there's not a genuine intelligence and a creativity there. There's an aggregate of answers that could look like an intelligence if you ask a particular sort of question, and there's value in that. But with the I Ching, there is a sense, this is an intelligence, and it's an intelligence. It's couched in Confucian ethics. It's grounded in sort of Taoist metaphysics, so it's embedded in those things. And then you've got all the commentaries and all the wisdom traditions on top of that. So you've got the 10 Wings, which are a series of commentaries. So you've got all the law around the trigrams and the hexagrams. You've got whatever translation you're using and whatever they're drawing on. So you've got even just if you just stick to Wilhelm's book, which is more than enough, you've got access to this massive wisdom tradition, this huge tradition of wisdom, but focuses in a singular way through the lens of a hexagram you get and the changing lines you get to provide you with quite a precise answer that you can then expand and look at if you're not sure what it means. But I would say there's a real genuine intelligence at play through the in a way that there isn't with ChatGPT.
I think this, though, brings us to Reich in a way, though, because, again, in that sense of depth, I wonder, at least in the way that I'm using depth or essence, whether we're talking about something that is even deeper than intelligent. Where are you going? Where are you going if you're stepping out of, or if you're going deeper than the mental center, or even the heart center?
Well, sorry, there's mosquitoes. There, I would say, with Reich stuff, well, he was like the first person to bring the body into psychotherapy. So he's someone who unlike later Freudians like Lacan and all of those guys, he wasn't interested in the play of that kind of verbal and analytical intelligence. He was more interested in the bodily intelligence, and even getting down to sort of beyond the bodily, really, because he's looking at energy and what energy does.
But doesn't energy need a body to contain it? At least in the human realm, right?
Yeah, but he's really looking at energy and energetic pulsation. And yes, it needs a body, but it's almost a process that's it goes beyond a bit what we normally think of as embodied. He's not just talking about feeling a bit into the body a bit more and sensing the body a bit more. He's saying, well, what is it doing? What's happening? He's talking about something that's quite fundamental to life. He's saying that the pulsation and expansion and contraction that he writes about is something that's really fundamental to life. It's the basic kind of life process. And that was why he looked, he did a load of work. He started working in microbiology in the 30s. There's a phrase I always like from his biographer Myron Sharif, where he says who's trying to drive life into a corner to reduce it to its lowest terms. What is the simplest things about life? Mike would probably say, yeah, it's the fact that it pulses like that, it moves. Something really simple. And Reichian therapy, in a way, is like going, can we reintroduce that, and what stops it? So it's, in a way, it's quite simple. So it's grounded in biology. If you read the bit in character analysis where he talks about armour segments, it's about these muscles, the movement of the eyes, the musculature around there, the fact that you know, what's your brow doing, what's your scalp doing.
And by relaxing that, you used, when we were talking before, this kind of, you know, on the out breath, really focusing on surrendering to that out breath, is the idea that at that point also then, in relaxing that armature, you let go, as I would say, you let go of the idiot a little bit. You let go of whatever the ego pattern or the ego narrative is. Is it sort of? Yeah, is it that idea that by relaxing that you kind of connect with something more essential?
Yeah, Reich's whole thing, going back to his early work in Vienna. His whole thing was basically, it was a question of character, and the idea was that rather than looking at symptoms, what was wrong, he would like extend that and go, okay, well, maybe if someone has a problem softening emotionally, maybe characterologically they're quite stubborn, maybe there's a stubbornness at work with them, and maybe that's something they identify with. You know, and any other kind of symptom, problem that someone's having, maybe that's related to these broader characterological symptoms, and maybe so he's all about attacking kind of character defences, and that took him into the body to sort of go, well, how are these, stubbornness might be expressed as a tight jaw, for instance, or a stiff neck, and he found that working directly on those things can kind of can increase our freedom from them. Yeah. Well, let's do a divination anyway.
All right. Yeah.
And see what it says.
Okay.
So I'm doing, what does Reich have to offer?
Yeah.
Okay. And I divine. I just use 3 coins normally, and I don't get into looking at the trigrams normally. The part I'm most interested in is I just read the judgment and the changing lines, and the part I'm most interested in is the changing lines. I often don't read if there's a changing hexagram. If there's only one line changes, I tend not to read the next hexagram even. I'm really interested in that moment of change. So let's see.
7.
Okay, sounds about right.
So talk to me for a moment about the changing line. When you said, I like it when a changing line comes up, right? What?
Well, if you don't get a change in line, it means there isn't a point in the situation that's looking to move or to change. It's like, this is the situation.
Right.
But when you get a change in line, there's a moment of change implied. Something is changing to its opposite. There's also the position of a change in line. I'm happy that it's changing line in the 4th place. The best ones are normally in the 5th place. I will be more if it was in the 3rd place. Yeah, first place tends to mean...
So talk me through that, because I don't really that's not sort of something I fully understand. What is it about the different the change in the different places that has significance?
It's not universal across all the hexagrams, but broadly the most beneficial lines, and often the ruling lines, will be in the 5th place. The worst lines will tend to be in the 3rd place.
Worst in what sense?
Bad luck. Bad luck and ill fortune, bad omens will often be in the 3rd place. In tarot, if you get a 10, it's like almost as if something's exceeded itself and it's kind of gone rotten, like it's a bit too much. Lines in the 3rd place, that's the top of a trigram, or lines in are often like that, and lines in the 6th place are like kind of, it's like the line of the sage. Often the 6th place is someone who's gone beyond the world, someone who's given up in the world, or who's walked away from the world. Those lines pointing to giving up or going beyond the world are often in the 6th place. The 5th place often tends to be the best lines, because they like there's still an involvement with the world, but they'll often be speaking in beneficial terms in a way that but it's a broad pattern. It's not
so it sort of gives you something to work with if you get the changing line in the 4th and the 5th place, as opposed to just sort of saying, just kind of telling you what you might already know about the situation.
5th and the 4th. 4th doesn't tend to be as good. If you look at those two now, if you compare the two lines, you'll probably find.
Okay, so let's say you were doing this by yourself. What would be the next step after you would read the judge? How would you then approach your?
To be honest, I probably wouldn't even read the judgment. I would just look at the line, but I wouldn't recommend that to someone who doesn't know the text. To me, right. So I'm looking at 57. The gentle, the penetrating wind. The first thing I think, that is like really, is gentle, but also it's penetrating. It is about gentleness. It's about stopping. It's about
something very gentle about working with somebody and how you're seeing them and their breath. And I mean, just when you were describing, because you've gone through this whole process of Reichian therapy yourself, right? Did it feel gentle as a client? Did it feel like you were, almost like, I'm thinking, again, I haven't experienced this, but a bit like a yoga teacher where they come and they might just sort of, just gently kind of to move your posture or something like that, or
to get energy moving. A lot of the time I had to stop trying. I had to stop. So that was gentle. My therapist wasn't always gentle, but
and how would that stop be affected? Would you say stop? Focus on your breath.
You'd find out that you were doing something that you needed to stop doing in the part
physically,
of your body.
Like you were holding yourself in a certain way,
holding yourself or moving or trying too hard or tensing or something. And like it was just trying to stop that and let that stop happening. So there could be this kind of movement in its place. So the gentle fits. Also the penetrating wind, that fits, it does penetrate. So that's quite positive. That does sort of speak to Reich in therapy to me. So what he's got to offer maybe is the gentle, but also something that lasts and penetrates. I'm just going to read through the judgment, which I wouldn't always do, but yeah, penetration produces gradual and inconspicuous effects. It should not be affected not by an act of violation, by influence that never lapses. Results of this kind are less striking to the eyes than those won by surprise attacks, but they're more enduring and more complete. It sort of says to me there's something of a quality of a Reichian work there, but also if we do want to move it into the culture a little bit more, that's an intention that you've got to have clearly. I'm just going to look at the changing line now. So I've got a good sense of what the trigram is about. Sorry, not trigram, hexagram is about. But then the way I see the lines is like almost like sort of filters. If you ever worked in film, and if you imagine you get a bit of acetate and you put that on top of a light, that's kind of how I see the lines. There's this basic energy or shape, which in this case is the gentle, like wood and wind, and then the line is a kind of filter to that sort of energy. And here, remorse vanishes during the hunt. 3 kinds of game are caught. When a responsible position and accumulated experience lead one to combine innate modesty with energetic action, great success is assured. 3 kinds of animals referred to servings for offerings to the gods, for feasting guests, and for everyday consumption. When the catch answered all 3 purposes, the hunt was considered especially successful. So that's sort of saying Reich's work has this multi-purpose utility. It's useful in lots of different ways. It's about much more than therapy for a start. It's about life really, and it's applicable to lots of different areas.
I think he had his headphones in.
Yeah, and that idea, a responsible position and accumulated experience lead one to combine innate modesty with energetic action. That's kind of saying you've got that's a way to do it, holding back and being modest about what you might achieve, but still going at it with a kind of energy. And then if you can combine those two, great success is assured. So
just to remind me, what was the way we formulated the question again? It was what
does Reich have to offer?
Right, okay. So if you were to pull all of that together,
3 kinds of game. It's got more than one function. It answers the spiritual urges, the emotional urges, the physical urges, the physical questions. It answers all of them. That's what it's got to offer. So it's
So I guess a final question in a way is, okay, so we've done this divination, right? And the question for you, I suppose, is, did you get anything from hexagram 57 that you yourself didn't already know or couldn't have already surmised, if I just asked you that question straight?
Yeah, I think so. We've got a new perspective on his work.
What do you think was the new perspective for you? Because for me it's all new at some level, right? But you're an old hand in terms of just knowing your way around that material. So what was it about hexagram 57 that you were like, oh, okay,
Well, it's getting a very positive line in the 4th line, and it's speaking to that richness.
Positive in also the sense of, because you're doing all of these various trainings in it, and you are wanting to fold more and more of it into your work as a therapist. So also, did you feel like it was sort of saying you're on the right path? This is keep on with that sort of keep that gentle wind blowing in this direction.
Yeah.
Is that how it felt?
Yeah, to me.
Yeah.
What about you? What did you think?
Yeah, it felt like an auspicious hexagram.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, from my limited understanding of Reich and it all being built on that, again, as you say, that absolute, that sort of yin-yang, systolic, diastolic, the pulsations, open, close, all of that. There's something about the gentle wind, and also just thinking about wind as a trigram. It feels very. I mean, wind at some level feels respiratory, right? It feels like and when you are with wind, there is the sense of also wind. It feels like a form of respiration.
Yeah.
A coming and a going, and a changing as well, in terms of. And wind can also, I guess, sometimes wind can feel almost, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes wind can almost. I'm talking about actual wind, right? I sometimes find wind can feel quite anxiety provoking at times. There's certain forms of wind that are like, oh, you're like prodding me, stop, sort of thing. And that felt all of a piece in a way with that hexagram. Well, I don't know. There's something about when I make these videos that they always sort of end in close to darkness.
Yeah.
I feel like the kind of the heath is almost sort of saying, okay, well,
here we go.
We've done our we've done our bit. We've done our bit for today.
Is this yang to yin?
Yeah, but thank you for coming out today and drinking some oolong and talking Reich and the I Ching. Lots to think about.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.